So I'm here with Philip A. Robinson Jr. Here we are in the studio on a nice Sunday afternoon. And we were just talking about this piece, which is in progress. Do you mind picking up where we left off there, Phil?
Yeah, so continuing to work on this series entitled Old Talks with New Icons, and it's loosely based on is being able to see yourself in the reflection of the figure, knowing that clothing is non-binary, so any individual can put themselves in this position once it's up on the wall, see what you look like in that space. You also see yourself in the reflection around the figure, but also in between the cracks and crevices, which gives yourself a continued happening, right? Because you're seeing yourself in the figure, but you also see yourself around the figure, as well as any other entities or its surroundings as reflected from the viewpoint. This idea of people making assumptions off of who somebody is just because of what they wear or what they look like or the music they listen to. I wanted people to be able to put themselves into spaces where they may not normally see themselves, right? I currently have 14 from the series, 11 of which are back on the East Coast. That was there for my solo show. I'm working on these now, and I'm finding that these are changing, as I go through them.
Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, we spoke briefly about some things that worked, some things that didn't work once I got from the solo show, and I'm taking that information with me as I approach these. And so I guess I've kind of held off on completing this one just because I needed to sit with me a little bit more to see if that's indeed what I'm trying to say within the work. This one I'm okay with, and I'm going to complete that one. I like the way it's chopped off. I think this one and this one here to the left will probably be my last full figure pieces, and I'm going to work more towards like partial or smaller components, just to see how that works. So here again you have the clothed figure, the bulge of flesh. Same thing with here, only with that one, I'm taking the inverse of the positive space. So I work with positive and negative space and then distort the figure.
That's materials are wood, and then you have a stainless steel.
Mirror finished stainless steel, balsa wood frame, and it's all screwed in from behind. But with that one, I'm actually doing the inverse, where instead of taking the cutouts, I'm taking the whole piece minus the cutout. So that's a totally different entity, and I actually have been putting it off for a while because it scares me.
Yeah, I'm trying to just imagine it. It's hard.
This piece scares me. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's very achievable. It's just so time consuming. So like here, where you can kind of see where the light's hitting, being able to drill in and then, carving out each one of these entities. And so this is poplar, and it has a green stripe down the middle. It's hard to see because of the age, but then once this is shined up, and then you'll have this green kind of stripe that goes along here.
Oh, nice. What are your essential tools in this? Are you, like in that case, is that jigsaw? What are you using?
Yeah, so machine-wise, jigsaw, drill bit, anything that will get the job done. The reality is my hands, right? My hands and my eyes. I need to see it, visualize it, and then using my hands to kind of manipulate it. Like if you even here, like you'll see me, if I'm doing this, I'm feeling it to feel it like it's the right texture and size. I want it to have some relief, so like making sure that when I'm putting this down, it's not just flat, but it has, different parts to it. So like trying different things to see what works and what doesn't work.
So you're boosting it up and down
Right.
in the actual 3D.
A little subtle here, but you can kind of see it here where like this bag goes back in relief from, you know, where it's prominent to a little less, and then all the way down. So, same thing here, like it's a small thing, but when it's propped up, you could really see how it goes off. And even here, where you know that back of the jacket would not be prominent, it would be in the foreground, right? Excuse me, it would be in the background, and the pants would be in the foreground. Same thing with the jacket, how the shirt is a little tucked in. So like being able to get that in there also. And then this here is kind of where I was leaning towards when I left New Jersey, New York, as I was, again, thinking about the negative space instead of the positive space and incorporating other materials like marble. So I was working on this piece here and originally thought that, you know, I would cut out this marble and then put the figure and make the figure out of wood as I was doing. However, there's something really beautiful about just the marble on its own.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking really to just leave it and just to finish it with just this on its own.
So these angles, these cut angles like so, they represent the stairs.
Right, here, I'll show you.
That's outstanding. That's great.
You know, because you're always thinking about what's the next thing going to be. Right?
Yeah.
And you can only work on something for so long before it evolves and changes and fluctuates. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Let's talk about that for a sec. So experimentation, it's a big thing for me. So I'm curious about what you have going on when you're stuck or how you get ideas down. What do you do to, get yourself to turn a corner?
Yeah, it's that easy. The stuff that works for me is to have 4 or 5 pieces that I'm working on at one time, right? So if I get tired on one, I go to the next one. If I get tired of this one, I go to this one. I also bring work with me to school so that, you know, if I have a free time or, you know, while the kids are working, then I can be working on my stuff also, or to be conceptualizing about how I want to continue, you know, the process.
So by bringing it to school, you're a teacher, you teach art, is that right?
That's true. I teach fine arts I've taught K through 12. Currently I'm teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th, and 12th grade ceramics.
So you bring it to the actual art classroom and show them what you're doing. That's awesome.
Well, you know, I bring it there and work on it, and if they want to know, then we talk about it. Right? I don't bring them work so they can see it for their sake, only because I don't want them to feel like they can't recreate it, right? It's important for them to know that, you know, it's taken me years to get to this point, right? So
right.
That happens overnight.
And
right?
you can be a person who fails, who tries, who starts over in front of them.
Yeah, it's all problem solving, right? Like, if something doesn't work, or I feel like something doesn't work, then how am I going to change it, right? Because we're always in control. So the same thing with the kids. Kids say, well, I don't like this. Okay, why? Why don't you like it? And it's kind of I take the same, you know, ideology here where, you know, I've got stuff that I've been working on for over 10 years versus stuff that I just started versus stuff that I'm still conceptualizing over, right? Like and that's really why, you know, you'll see all the wood up here or the wood on the sides. I want to be able to see what I have and then subconsciously start to think about, all right, I got these pieces here. How can I utilize this to give me what I want? And in part, it's kind of like amassing a certain amount of wood and knowing what I have, so that when I start thinking about my ideas, I'm like, okay, I know I have, you know, this type of walnut that I could use here for the face, or, you know, I've got this spalted maple that I think will look right with this, and, you know, just trying to put all the pieces together.
What kind of artist are you? Do you like to back yourself into a corner and then have to problem solve out? Do you like to be more free range? Am I making sense with that question? Yeah,
I think it's a little bit of both, right? Like I knew going into that piece how hard it was going to be. Right? Mm-hmm. I knew going into this how much time it would actually take to create that, right? But it's kind of the penance of sculptors, is that we can't knock out work in a day, right? Like
Right.
we don't realize that. And I guess my way of being able to knock out work in a day is to create my sketches, right? So my sketches are, it's what helps me to kind of envision my work. So got a couple here. Let's take this one. So here's another example. So this was the cutout that I had, right? But the original idea is that if you could see yourself in this, you can kind of see what that would look like with the person
Yeah.
versus, regular, and then being able to see yourself.
So you're actually using the ability to look through that, like through the actual paper, to get a sort of ghost-like, ephemeral feel. Nice. So this is how you sort of, this is you working out an idea before really going into the materials.
Exactly. Working out the idea on paper and then utilizing that positive and negative space to give me, what I want in the wood. So I kind of back myself up to begin with and then find ways to, if it's time, if it's material, on how to create it. Part of the issue with me moving here to the West Coast is knowing that I would need to source another framer, right? Knowing that I would need to source other ways to find material. Knowing that I would have to turn, this space into a studio because I couldn't afford a studio space anymore.
Right.
And then even now, all my connections really being on the East Coast, how do I make the connections here on the West Coast?
Yeah, because
right?
your latest show is an East Coast show. Shipping alone.
Shipping alone. And I don't have light work either. This is heavy work. So there's an expense to that. But my mind is, you made your connections on the East Coast. Now it's time to make the connections, on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to learn about, galleries here in Portland and in LA and all the major hubs. I'm excited to learn about, people that really run the scenes out here and connect with them, talk with them, build with them, invite them over, have them see the space, start building a network here that I spent years doing back home
Yeah.
on the East Coast.